Hello friends, welcome back to the Eerie Fairy Tales. My name is Letty, and today I have for you 9 sci-fi books that you can read in a day. So these are all 200 pages or less. And the first book is The Illustrated Man by Ray Bradbury. This is 186 pages. I'll pull it up there so you can see the cool cover. I got this at the library bookstore for like $1, so that was pretty cool. And these are 18 unrelated short stories that are all tied together by the frame story of The Illustrated Man. And he is a former member of a carnival freak show, and he was known as the Extensively Tattooed Man. And his tattoos were allegedly done by a time-traveling woman. They are all individually animated, and they each tell a tale. A recurring theme throughout the stories is conflict between the cold mechanics of technology and the psychology of people. I thought the blurb on the back sounded pretty cool, so I'll read that to you. The tattooed man moves, and in the arcane designs scrawled upon his skin swirl tales beyond imagining, tales of love and laughter, darkness and death, of mankind's glowing golden past and its dim haunted future. Here are 18 incomparable stories that blend magic and truth in a kaleidoscope tapestry of wonder, woven by the matchless imagination of Ray Bradbury. That's a really cool blurb. That sounds so fun. Then we have The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams, and this is 156 pages, and this is a satirical sci-fi. I read this a long time ago, and I'm sure a lot of people have read this, but I thought I would include it just in case you haven't. In this, we follow Arthur Dent, a man who lives on Earth, and he's swept away on a space adventure with his friend, Ford Prefect, who is from another planet. And he tells him that Earth is about to be destroyed. It explores and satirizes many facets of modern life, such as the legitimacy of authority, the absurdity of bureaucracy, and how happiness is tied to consumerism. And this book tells you the answer to the meaning of life. If you know, you know. And if you don't know, trust me, you will not guess the answer. Sorry, I'm a liar. It's not 156 pages, it's 159. And the third book is Night Flyer by George R.R. Martin. This is 193 pages. Yes, that George R.R. Martin. And this was turned into a show as well on the SciFi channel. And this would be considered more like a sci-fi horror, so one of my favorite genres. This blends the deep space thrills like an Alien mixed with the psychological horror of The Shining, so that sounds really good. We have a scientific expedition that is launched to go study a mysterious alien race. However, the only ship available is Night Flyer, and it's a totally autonomous ship. It only needs one person to man it. And this captain, he basically stays locked away the whole time, and he only interacts with his passengers through a disembodied voice or a projected hologram. And then the team's telepath senses some kind of unknown presence aboard, something dangerous, volatile, alien, but the captain doesn't really seem to care. It's basically up to a genetically enhanced outcast to solve the mystery and save everyone before something happens to them. This sounds really good. Hopefully I can read it soon. The fourth book is At the Mountains of Madness by H.P. Lovecraft. This is 123 pages. This is a cool little cover here. This is a Penguin edition. And this is another sci-fi horror, and this is set in the 1930s in Antarctica. We follow a group of explorers that go to investigate the land, and they end up stumbling upon some kind of ancient alien ruins, like an ancient civilization, and then they end up unleashing monstrous forces that they cannot control. This book relies on the idea that true horror is unknowable, indescribable, incomprehensible, and the isolated setting and the supernatural elements really build upon that premise. I am planning to read this soon. I started reading it a couple months ago. I put it down though, not because I didn't like it, but because another book came in that I wanted to read more. You know how it goes. I will be reading this soon in January though, so my review will be in February. And then we have Counterweight by Juna, and this is 156 pages. And I did read this in August, so I'll link my wrap up below in case you missed that review. And this is more like a sci-fi cyberpunk. And in this book, we have a corporation that is building a space elevator. And to hold it taut, keep it balanced, is this counterweight right here. And it's basically just filled with space junk. Well, mixed in with all that space junk is actually really valuable information. And part of that is the memory of one of the former CEO of that company who has passed away since. So this is really valuable information, and it holds the key to not only the corporation's future, but humanity as a whole. And so you have different factions that are competing to gain this information. This book is about political machinations, worms, like digital like viruses that infect people's brains, high-tech impersonations, fraud, and corruption. If you are looking for a super unique sci-fi novella, highly recommend this. And book number 6 is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, and this is 192 pages. This I also read in August, so that will also be in my August wrap-up linked below. And I would say this is a pretty famous sci-fi horror story. And in this we follow a couple main characters, Dr. Frankenstein, who has somehow animated the inanimate. And he has created this creature. And the creature is the second main character. Well, the doctor creates life and he's so proud of himself, but then he decides to go on a trip. So he abandons the creature. And while he's gone out of town, something bad happens. But also the creature ends up learning about humans through observation. He observes some neighbors and he reads books, in particular Paradise Lost by Milton. So the doctor comes back into town and the creature is like, hey, yeah, this bad thing went down, but you need to make me a companion because that's what I need. You abandoned me, you left me, and I need companionship. So he basically demands that the doctor make him a companion. Well, then more bad things happen. And this book poses the question, is the creature the monster? Or is maybe the man who created him really the monster? And yeah, I would say the latter for sure. And this is beautifully written. I mean, it's a classic for a reason. If you're intimidated by it, don't be. There is a little bit of a monologue situation going on here for a little bit, but I think it's well worth it, and it is like pure poetry in my opinion. Really beautiful story. I can see why it's lasted this long and why there are so many different pop culture references to it. And book number 7 is Who Goes There by John W. Campbell. This is 161 pages. And just like you can see on the cover there, this novella was the basis of the movie The Thing. So this is a sci-fi horror. And this does have a little bit of a creature feature element. So once again, we are in Antarctica and we have a group of people who are trapped in a scientific outpost, and they end up discovering and thawing the body of a crash-landed alien. And what's worse is that this creature can shapeshift into any animal or human. So how could they even trust their own eyes? How do they know who to trust? Now, I will be reading this in January. I am planning on doing a themed reading vlog. I'm going to be reading 3 novellas that are all snowy, cold, like horror type of novellas. This is going to be one, as well as At the Mountains with Madness. And the third one, you'll have to wait and see my next video because it will be in that video. Let's see if you can guess what it is. It's a horror novella, so that's a hint. And it has a cold, snowy, isolated setting. So, any guesses? What do you think the third book will be? And book number 8 is The Scourge Between Stars by Ness Brown. And this is 159 pages. I just got this one. I can't wait to read it because it's space sci-fi horror. And this we follow the captain of a starship, and she's basically in charge of keeping everybody safe. They're on their way back to Earth from a failed colony on a distant planet. And they're facing threats of starvation and destruction because they're making their way through a minefield of interstellar space. and her crew starts reaching its breaking point. And to make matters worse, a new threat emerges, and it starts picking off members in a grim, bloody fashion. And now she and her team must hunt down this unknown intruder if they have any chance of making it back to Earth alive. This sounds a bit similar to Nightflyer, and I can't wait to read both of them. And book number 9 also involves space, but in a little different way. And it's sci-fi, but it's also a little comedy. And it's from an author whose name you'll probably recognize, but you may not know that he wrote this book. And that's Bad Astronauts by Grady Hendrix, and it's 160 pages. Yes, this is one of his backlist. I think he wrote this back in 2008 or something like that, and he has since re-edited it and released it. I didn't even know about this book until Lexi over at Books with Lexi mentioned it, and I was like, hold up, what? A space book that Grady Hendrix wrote? Let me get that real quick. So I guess it's a little interesting. I've heard mixed reviews about it, but I mean, I'm excited to read it. And in this, we have an abandoned International Space Station. Basically, there's only a couple astronauts left at all, like NASA's budget has been totally slashed, and the mission at the ISS has totally failed, and the one astronaut that is there is stranded there, and nobody really cares to go and get him. However, his cousin Walter does care. And although he's a little bit of a drunk and he's a washout from the shuttle program, he is determined to go rescue him himself. So he starts building a rocket. I mean, this just sounds like a fun, silly time, so I hope I enjoy it. And if you didn't know that Grady Hendrix wrote anything but horror and you like sci-fi, maybe you'd like to read this too. Okay, friends, that will wrap it up for my 9 sci-fi books that you can read in a day. Have you read any of these? What did you think? Have you added any new ones to your TBR? And stay tuned for the next video that will be 13 horror books that you can read in a day. Hopefully I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.